Hey friends, this is Sean Washburn from YourExcelTutor.com, and you're watching 30 Tips in 30 Days. And today we're going to be kind of peeling back the curtain on Excel and showing you the backside. So this would be like going to the land of Oz and seeing behind the curtain and seeing some of how things work. And in yesterday's tip, we talked about options and different options you have. That is one side of kind of the backside of the curtain there, just what levers and things you can do to change how you see things in Excel. But the other one is macros, and what I want to show you are, without really getting into how to create a macro, we're going to have another tip on that, just because I want you to get just at least see what's out there. But I want to talk a little bit about the whole macro setup. So we talked about this briefly, but if you look up here, there are different types of settings, and we talked about this in yesterday's tip. The default setting for file extensions is to save it as an XLSX, and if you have a macro, you can't run a macro in one that's saved that way. So if you want to have a macro running, which a macro is just a little program in the back end, you can click with a button or whatever, and it can repeat something you did, or it can be a whole program that does all kinds of stuff. And it's really, I love that part of Excel because it lets you use Excel like some kind of piece of software that you can do things that you didn't realize Excel could do. That's one of the wonders of it. So, but if you want to use macros, you have to save your file as an XLSM. And the older versions of Excel used to be all just .xls, and there could be macros or not macros, but then they split it off. So just to show you this, so in this case, I've already saved this file as an XLSM. But when you go in, by default, your ribbon, you'll look across your ribbon, and you won't see, there's a key tab here that's missing that you won't see. And I think it's, my hunch is that they left it out because they would save them a lot of help desk questions coming in from people messing with things that they weren't sure what they were getting into. But I'm going to show you in this video. So it's the developer tab, and if you right click on the ribbon here and you go to customize ribbon, you'll go down here and you'll see that there's one called developer, and it's not checked. So we're going to check it and hit OK, and then when you come back in here, now there's a developer tab. So if you come to this tab, you're going to see a whole new set of things that you've never seen before. And this is, some of it is macro related, some is just, there's things on the back end. It's almost like if you were someone who works with a quilt or something like that, or a sweater, and on the inside, on the back side, you see all kinds of stuff going back and forth, but on the front you just see a beautiful pattern. That's kind of like Excel. There's all the stuff that you just see on the front, and on the back end there's a lot more that's going on. So you go to this developer tab. First thing is, if you click this Visual Basic window, that button right there, it's going to pull up this whole back side here. And if you've never seen this, it's a little overwhelming because you're like, I have no idea what any of this stuff is. First thing you'll see though, there's this project area, and we're just going to run through this I just want to give you a taste of what's back here. It shows you every one of your tabs, and most of them you'll click on, there's really nothing there. But you can actually have Visual Basic tied into, or programs tied into your actual tabs, or you can have in here, you can have a module. And this one, let's see if we have a module. We don't have one in there, but we can go in here, we can click this and go to module, and I can actually start creating macros there. If you record a macro, it'll create that on its own. And I know that a lot of this is gibberish, but just to show you, so that's it sees all your tabs here. This is an area where macros and things would show up. There's settings for all your tabs. There are all kinds of things. We'll get into a little bit of that with one of my tips, where we're just going to record a macro and show you some of the ins and outs of how that works, just to get you a taste for that. But if we go back, so let's go back to the front here. The other thing you'll see, so you can click on this will show you what macros you have. In this case, we don't have any right now. But if we've recorded some or created some, you'll see that list here, and you could run them from this dialog box. Here's a place where you can record. This changes your macro security, and what that means is if someone sends you a file that has a macro in it, there's 4 different levels of security. One is run the macros at all. Another one is run them, but only after you say okay. Another one is run them if they're from a source that you've said is, it's secure. And the fourth one is basically run everything, which if you're only running your own files, that's okay because you don't have to worry about something from the outside. But those are those settings. And then as you go across through here, we're just going to pull down one thing here, and that is in this insert, this little toolbox here. If you click this toolbox, there are these form functions. Now there's also other ones down here called ActiveX controls, and they look similar. Like there's a button, there's a drop down, all this stuff. You're not going to touch these bottom ones, that's a whole different ballgame. But you can use these, and this is kind of a fun thing to play around with. So, you can put a button down here, and you could tie that button into a macro if you wanted to. You notice you can click on it, it acts like a button, there's nothing tied to it. But there's other things you can use that are cool, like a spin button or a slider. So I can put a slider down here, and what I can do is I can tie it to a cell. So maybe I've got a cell with a number, I'll put a number 2 in there. And if I right click on this slider and go to format control, there's a bunch of different settings, and what it does, I can control this cell. So I can say cell link, I'm going to click on that cell, and then I can change, so maybe I want it to be values from 10 to 20, and I want it to go up by 1 every time I click it. And okay, we're good, wait, okay. So this is where it gets cool. I can click this and that number will go up like that, up to 20. Or I can use this scroll, I can slide it like that, and you'll see it's doing it in real time as I scroll. Or if I click it like that, it's going to go all the way to 20. So if it was a bigger increment, like we went in here and we say we went up to 100, and I made my incremental change 1, and I've got the page changes 10. What that means is if I click in here, it's going to go up by 10. But if I click this thing, it's going to go up by 1. So there's lots of things in that toolbox area up here you can play around with, radio buttons that you can click, check boxes, and maybe we'll do another whole session where we'll kind of get into more of that, because I think you don't have to use macros to use them. It can be used for any kind of file where you've got something and maybe you just want to be able to change something really easily without retyping it every time. Like I want to see, okay, if this is 30, there's a bunch of formulas. I don't want to have to go 29, 28 and keep going back in there. I could just click this and let it do it for me. So that's just a quick run through just to show you that there is this thing called a developer tab and some of the items that are in there that you can use. And like I say, we'll touch more on that, but this is a place where I live a lot because I love to use all these features and macros and backend stuff like that. So I hope you enjoyed that peek behind the curtain, and you can play around with this. Like I say, be careful. None of the stuff I've showed you today, if you do it, is going to mess things up, but when you're in this backside, this area, that's why they have it hidden for a reason. It's because they don't want people poking around and then getting into trouble with a file. So check it out. If you got questions, leave them in the comments, and yeah, we'll be back tomorrow for another tip.